It started with a strange signal picked up by one of the observatories in the middle of a vast desert. For weeks, no one could figure out its source. It wasn't like anything humans had ever recorded before. The signal was erratic at first, then faded into silence. Scientists were puzzled, but they knew it was worth investigating. Soon, a team of geologists, engineers, and military advisors was sent to the location far from the nearest town. The desert stretched endlessly, with nothing but sand and rocks as far as the eye could see. When they arrived, the sight left everyone stunned. Half buried in the sand was a massive ship unlike anything Earth had ever produced. Its surface shimmered faintly, even in the harsh sunlight, as if it had a layer of living metal. The edges were jagged, torn, and scarred, showing signs of a violent crash. Some parts had sunk into the sand, and strange blue smoke leaked from cracks in the hull. At first, no one dared to touch it. The ship seemed alien, alive in some way, and there was an instinctive fear that it might be dangerous. The military wanted to secure the area first. They put up a perimeter, making sure no one outside the official team could get close. Drones flew overhead, scanning for radiation, chemicals, or signs of life. The engineers approached slowly, wearing protective suits and carrying scanners. Every step toward the ship felt like walking into history. None of them could say exactly why, but everyone felt the weight of discovery pressing down. This was not just an accident. It was something extraordinary inside the ship. The air was surprisingly still, even though parts of the hull were damaged. Strange lights pulsed faintly along the walls, and the interior seemed to hum with energy. No one could understand the symbols etched into the surfaces. They didn't look like any language humans knew. The team carefully took samples, documented every detail, and mapped the corridors. It felt eerie, almost like the ship had a memory, or that it was watching them. One of the engineers, a young woman who had spent her life studying energy systems, noticed something unusual in what appeared to be the ship's power core. It was like nothing she had ever seen. The core was intact, despite the crash, and faint pulses of energy still flowed through it. She realized it wasn't just a power source. It was something that could potentially be harnessed, maybe even adapted. But how to make sense of alien technology that defied every known law of physics? That was the question no one could answer yet. For weeks, the team worked carefully. They documented, tested, and explored, but always with extreme caution. Every time someone thought they understood a small piece of the ship, a new discovery would challenge that understanding. There were areas of the ship that seemed to change subtly when no one was looking directly. Shadows shifted strangely, lights flickered as if reacting to their presence. Some nights, the engineers would hear faint sounds coming from deep within the hull, like whispers carried on the wind. No one could tell if it was the wind, the desert, or something else entirely. The discovery quickly attracted attention from higher authorities. Governments sent officials to observe, scientists demanded access, and journalists speculated wildly. Rumors spread about the origin of the ship, about alien life, about what it might be capable of. Some feared it could be a weapon, left behind intentionally, a trap meant for whoever found it. Others believed it could be a gift, a chance for humanity to leap forward. The team on the ground didn't know who to trust. Every new arrival brought new pressure, new questions, and more eyes watching their every move. Despite the tension, the team made a breakthrough. One day, while analyzing the power core, they noticed a pattern in the energy pulses. It was subtle, almost like a rhythm, a code that repeated in cycles. The young engineer felt a surge of excitement. Could this be a way to understand how the ship functioned? Could humans actually figure out how to interact with alien technology? It was a thought that was both thrilling and terrifying. They had to proceed with care. One wrong move could destroy the core or worse, as days turned into weeks, small successes began to build confidence. They managed to power a small section of the ship. Lights flickered, doors opened, and holographic displays appeared briefly before shutting down. It was like waking a sleeping giant. The team began to see that the ship, although abandoned, held knowledge and potential far beyond what humans had imagined. Every day brought new questions. Why was the ship here? Who built it? And most importantly, why was it left behind, abandoned in the desert? The discovery also changed the team personally. Engineers who had spent their lives on ordinary machines were now dealing with something truly extraordinary. The desert became their world, and the ship their obsession. They argued, laughed, and sometimes even cried over breakthroughs and failures. The stress was immense, but so was the sense of purpose. For the first time, humanity wasn't just looking at alien life from afar. They were holding a piece of it, trying to make sense of it, and slowly learning to work with it. Outside the ship, the world waited with bated breath. Reports of strange lights, unexplained energy surges, and mysterious signals reached cities thousands of miles away. People speculated about extraterrestrial visitors, secret government projects, and even the possibility of humanity finally making contact with life beyond Earth. But on the ground, in the desert, the team faced something more immediate: how to unlock the secrets of a ship built for beings who were not human, using minds and hands that were. Every day was a puzzle, a challenge, and a step toward something bigger than anyone had ever imagined. And then, one night, the young engineer noticed something that made her heart stop. A small part of the core, previously dormant, pulsed brighter than ever before. It was a tiny flicker at first, almost dismissible. But then it grew, spreading through the nearby conduits, sending waves of light across the walls. The ship seemed to respond to their presence, as if it had been waiting for humans to understand even a fraction of its potential. There was no fear in the moment, only awe and the realization that humanity had just taken its first step into something far larger than themselves. That it was a step that would change everything. The ship was abandoned, yes, but it was alive in its own way. Humanity had discovered it, studied it, and for the first time began to understand that what was left behind was not just wreckage, it was a seed of power, a tool that could reshape the future. And deep down, the team knew that this was only the beginning. The desert, the ship, and the strange signals had become the stage for humanity's greatest challenge yet, turning the unknown into something of their own, something that could protect them, and maybe even change the course of history. After the first signs of life from the ship's power core, the team knew they had reached a turning point. What had once been a silent, abandoned relic now seemed to respond to human attention. Excitement mixed with fear. Every pulse of light or shift in the hull reminded them that they were dealing with something far beyond ordinary machines. It was clear that if they wanted to understand the ship, they had to study it carefully, piece by piece, without rushing. The engineers started by mapping the interior in greater detail than ever before. The corridors twisted in impossible angles, and rooms seemed to defy conventional logic. Some areas were hollow, yet sensors detected traces of dense energy, as if something invisible still lingered there. Every room contained strange devices, panels with shifting symbols, and machinery that seemed to operate without moving parts. The team had never seen anything like it, and every new discovery brought both wonder and anxiety. They had to figure out how the ship functioned while ensuring no one accidentally triggered something. Dangerous. Working with alien materials was the biggest challenge. The alloys that made up the ship's hull were lighter and stronger than anything humans had ever produced. Tools that worked on Earth metals often failed or broke when used on alien surfaces. At first, the team tried to adapt their equipment, but it became clear that they needed entirely new methods. They improvised constantly, melting, bending, and testing materials in ways that were both risky and inventive. Slowly, they began to see patterns, small hints in the design that suggested the ship had been built with logic, even if it wasn't the logic of humans. As the team experimented, they began to understand the power core better. Its pulses followed complex cycles, almost like a heartbeat. Each pulse seemed to carry information, a code that could be interpreted if they could find the key. The young engineer who had first noticed the core's pattern spent hours at a time analyzing data, comparing it to human energy systems, looking for similarities or differences. Her work became the foundation for the team's progress. It was exhausting, frustrating work, but it was also exhilarating. Every small discovery felt like peeling back a layer of the universe itself. The team faced setbacks that tested their patience and resolve. One experiment caused a minor explosion that blew out a wall panel, leaving scorch marks and forcing them to retreat for hours. Another experiment caused the lights to flicker violently, triggering alarms across their monitoring systems. Each time something went wrong, tempers flared, fear grew, and morale dipped. But the failures also taught them lessons. They learned to read the subtle signs the ship gave them, the hum of energy, the way panels shifted slightly, even the faint smell of the air when the core adjusted its output. Slowly, humans and ship began a silent conversation, understanding each other without words. As progress continued, the team noticed that the ship was not just a passive object. It was adaptive. Systems that were inactive one day would activate the next, responding to the team's movements or energy readings. It was as if the ship was testing them, or perhaps waiting for humans to prove that they could handle its power. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. They were not simply working with abandoned technology. They were being observed, in some way, by the ship itself. That realization made every step forward feel heavier, yet more meaningful. While the engineers worked, the scientists focused on the ship's environment. They discovered that certain rooms maintained temperatures far different from the outside desert heat. Others seemed to filter the air, purifying it with a technology no one could fully explain. Some devices emitted low-frequency sounds that affected nearby objects, moving them slightly without contact. The scientists hypothesized that the ship might have used these systems for maintenance, security, or even communication. Each discovery was a puzzle piece, revealing a small part of how the ship had once functioned, and hinting at the power it might hold if humanity could understand it fully. As the weeks passed, the team grew closer, bound by the shared purpose of understanding the ship. Meals were often brief, and sleep was short, but the energy in the air was contagious. Even in moments of frustration, they laughed at their mistakes, shared stories, and celebrated small victories. The desert outside remained harsh and unforgiving, but inside the ship, they had found a world of wonder. The bond between humans became as important as the bond with the ship itself, because they realized that only together could they hope to succeed. Yet outside pressures were mounting. News of the discovery had leaked in small ways, and governments were starting to demand answers. Military advisors pressed for a demonstration of power, while politicians wanted control over the project. Journalists speculated wildly, sometimes spreading misinformation, which only heightened public anxiety. The team on the ground had to balance secrecy, safety, and scientific progress. Every decision was weighed carefully, because a single mistake could have consequences far beyond the desert. Despite the tension, breakthroughs came. The team managed to activate a small energy field from one of the ship's devices. It was weak, but stable, and it demonstrated that alien energy could be controlled in some capacity by humans. Excitement spread quickly. They realized that if they could scale up their experiments safely, the possibilities were almost limitless. But with that realization came fear. Power always comes with responsibility, and the ship's technology was far beyond anything humans had ever controlled before. They were on the verge of something incredible, but they knew that one misstep could be catastrophic. At night, when the desert cooled, the team often gathered near the ship's entrance, looking up at the stars. The vast emptiness of space seemed closer than ever, as if the ship had brought a piece of the universe to Earth. Conversations turned philosophical. Why had the aliens left this ship behind? Was it abandoned by accident or on purpose? Could the ship have been a test for whoever found it? These questions had no answers yet, but they inspired the team to think bigger, to push harder, and to remain cautious. Every night under the desert sky reminded them of their smallness, but also of humanity's unique ability to learn, adapt, and survive. Then came a moment that changed everything. During a routine scan of the ship's core, the young engineer noticed that energy readings were no longer random. The pulses had begun to synchronize with her own calculations, almost as if the ship recognized her work. It was subtle at first, a tiny shift in amplitude, but it was unmistakable. She shared her findings with the team, and together they realized that the ship was responding to human understanding, not just human presence. It was a revelation. The ship was not a dead machine, but something that could interact with humans in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. This breakthrough sparked a new phase of work. Instead of simply studying the ship, the team began experimenting with controlled interfaces, trying to communicate, even in the simplest ways, with its systems. They developed safe protocols, using low-energy pulses to test responses. Over time, the ship seemed to learn from these interactions, stabilizing systems that had been dormant for centuries. Every success built confidence, and every failure taught humility. It was a delicate balance, a dance between human ingenuity and alien intelligence. By the end of the second part of their journey, the team realized that they were no longer just observers. They were participants in a story that had begun long before humans arrived. The ship, abandoned and seemingly failed, had given humanity a chance to understand something greater than themselves. It was still dangerous, unpredictable, and mysterious, but it was also an opportunity to grow, to experiment, and to push the boundaries of knowledge. The desert no longer felt empty. It was alive with possibility, and the human spirit had found a new challenge, one that would test their courage, creativity, and determination in ways they had never imagined. By the time Part 3 of their journey began, the team had moved beyond simply observing the ship. They were now experimenting, testing, and trying to unlock the potential that had been left behind. Every experiment was risky, but they had learned enough to move with a cautious confidence. The desert had become their second home, and the ship, once alien and intimidating, now felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. The first experiments focused on small-scale energy tests. The team had managed to stabilize a part of the power core, and this allowed them to power minor systems within the ship. Lights that had been dormant for decades flickered on, panels shifted, and small mechanisms began to operate. The joy among the engineers was palpable. Every tiny success was celebrated, because each one meant they were getting closer to understanding how the ship worked, and, potentially, how it could be used for the benefit of humanity. The young engineer, who had first noticed the pattern in the power core, became the central figure in these experiments. Her observations and calculations were crucial for the team to predict how the ship would react. They discovered that the core's energy could be directed, but only in very precise ways. If miscalculated, the energy surged unexpectedly, causing sparks, minor explosions, or short circuits. There were days when the team had to repair sections of the ship simply to continue their work. Yet these setbacks only strengthened their resolve. They were learning not only about alien technology, but about their own limits and creativity. As the experiments grew more advanced, the team began trying to interact with the ship's systems in more sophisticated ways. They developed rudimentary interfaces, connecting human-designed devices to alien circuits, attempting to communicate with the ship on some level. Sometimes it worked. Panels lit up, doors responded, and energy flowed in controlled channels. Other times, nothing happened, leaving the team frustrated but curious. Each success or failure was carefully documented, and patterns slowly emerged. It became clear that the ship was adaptive. It didn't function like a machine designed for repetitive tasks. It seemed almost intelligent, responding to human actions and adjusting itself accordingly. The team also started to experiment with the alien materials. The hull was made of alloys stronger and lighter than any metal on Earth. Traditional tools often failed when working with it, forcing the engineers to innovate. They melted, reshaped, and tested different methods of manipulating the metal, discovering that it could conduct energy in ways humans had never imagined. One breakthrough allowed them to create small devices using pieces of the ship's hull. These devices were stable, able to handle high energy output, and hinted at the potential to scale up human control of the ship's power. Each success reinforced the sense that the abandoned vessel could be transformed into something extraordinary. While the engineers focused on the technical side, the scientists observed the ship's environmental systems. Some rooms maintained air quality and temperature far beyond what humans could achieve naturally. Certain sections emitted low-frequency sounds that subtly moved objects, while other areas appeared to filter energy itself. These systems weren't random. They had clear functions, although their purpose remained a mystery. By carefully studying these phenomena, the team began to understand how the ship could operate autonomously, sustaining itself long after its creators had left. This realization was both fascinating and unnerving. They were witnessing technology that blurred the line between machine and organism. Despite the progress, the experiments were not without danger. One miscalculation caused a small section of the core to overload, sending an electrical wave through the nearby corridors. Alarms sounded, lights flickered violently, and the team had to evacuate until the system stabilized. The incident reminded them that the ship was not just a tool. It was a force that demanded respect. Fear became a constant companion, but it was paired with awe. They knew that pushing the ship further would require careful planning, patience, and a steady hand as the days turned into weeks. The team developed a routine. Mornings were spent running calculations and planning experiments. Afternoons were for hands-on work with the ship's systems. Evenings became a time for reflection, discussion, and sharing insights. The desert outside remained harsh and unforgiving, but inside the ship, a new world was unfolding. The ship had begun to feel less like an object and more like a collaborator. It responded to their curiosity, guided them in subtle ways, and sometimes seemed to test their understanding. This interaction created a sense of partnership, even though the ship was still alien and mysterious. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when the team managed to stabilize a small energy field around a section of the ship. It was faint but controlled. It didn't just power systems. It could interact with objects, moving them without direct contact. This discovery opened up possibilities they hadn't considered before. The ship's energy could be harnessed for practical applications, potentially giving humanity tools far beyond current technology. The team realized that if they continued cautiously, the abandoned ship could be transformed into a system that could defend humanity, or even give humans the ability to explore further into the cosmos with unprecedented capability. However, the increasing potential also brought tension. External pressures from governments and military officials grew. They wanted to see immediate results, to understand the weapon potential, and to claim control. The team struggled to balance curiosity-driven exploration with demands for accountability. They also worried about the consequences of releasing such technology too quickly. There were ethical questions they couldn't ignore. Could humans handle this power responsibly? Could it be misused? These concerns created long debates among the team. even as they pushed forward with experiments. Amid these challenges, the team's bond strengthened. Working in the desert, in close quarters, under constant pressure, forced them to rely on one another. They celebrated small victories together, comforted each other during setbacks, and shared moments of awe at the discoveries they were making. This human connection became as crucial to the project as the experiments themselves. They understood that no amount of technology could replace trust, collaboration, and the shared determination to achieve something extraordinary. One night, as the team monitored the core's pulses, they noticed a subtle change. The energy output had shifted, aligning almost perfectly with a new sequence the young engineer had been testing. It was a moment of pure excitement and disbelief. The ship was responding. It wasn't just a machine. It seemed to understand, to recognize their efforts. The team realized they were witnessing a form of interaction that went beyond simple physics. The ship had become an active participant in their experiments, guiding, teaching, and responding to their presence. This revelation transformed their approach. The experiments became more structured, more deliberate. They no longer tested systems blindly. They observed, predicted, and then interacted. They used the ship's responses to refine their methods, gradually learning to control small portions of its energy. Each step forward felt like unlocking a new language, a form of communication that was technical, intuitive, and entirely alien. And yet, it was also human, because it relied on creativity, patience, and the willingness to learn from mistakes. By the end of this phase, the team had achieved something remarkable. They had turned observation into interaction and curiosity into control. They understood enough of the ship to experiment safely, to harness energy in ways that could be practical, and to push the limits of human ingenuity. The abandoned vessel was no longer just a crashed alien ship. It was a laboratory, a partner, and a potential tool that could change everything. The desert, once a silent witness to the ship's crash, now buzzed with energy, purpose, and human ambition. The team knew that they were only at the beginning. The ship held far more secrets than they had uncovered, and the possibilities it offered were vast and unpredictable. But for the first time, humanity had a chance not just to study the unknown, but to learn from it, adapt it, and eventually transform it. And in that realization, the team felt a mix of fear, wonder, and unstoppable determination. As the team's understanding of the ship deepened, it became clear that what they were discovering was more than just advanced technology. The ship was powerful, adaptive, and unpredictable, and that realization brought new challenges. While the desert provided isolation for their experiments, it could not shield them from the growing pressures outside. Governments, corporations, and military agencies all wanted a piece of the discovery. Each entity had its own agenda, and the tension around the project grew sharper by the day. Officials arrived more frequently, asking for updates, demanding demonstrations, and insisting on oversight. Some wanted the technology for defensive purposes, claiming it could protect humanity from threats, whether on Earth or from space. Others were more aggressive, seeing it as a potential weapon that could be used to dominate other nations. The team was caught in the middle, knowing that rushing or misusing the ship's energy could be catastrophic. Every decision carried enormous weight. At the same time, whispers of espionage and sabotage began to circulate. Small malfunctions that once might have been blamed on human error now seemed suspicious. Equipment was tampered with, data files went missing, and sensors recorded anomalies that could not be explained. The team realized that not all humans around them were working toward the same goal. Some sought personal gain, political power, or profit, and the presence of such advanced alien technology made them desperate. Trust became a rare commodity, and even the closest colleagues had to remain vigilant. Despite these pressures, the team refused to stop their work. They understood that the ship's potential was too great to waste, and they also knew that patience and precision were vital. Experiments became more controlled, with detailed safety protocols to prevent accidents or deliberate interference. Each test was documented meticulously, and backup systems were installed to catch errors. The engineers and scientists became highly disciplined, their focus sharpened by the awareness that they were not only working with alien technology, but also navigating human ambition, greed, and fear. One breakthrough came when the team successfully connected several of the ship's systems to human-designed interfaces. This allowed them to control energy outputs more precisely and to experiment with applications that had practical uses. Small objects could be moved with energy fields, lights could be controlled remotely, and minor structural manipulations became possible. These successes boosted morale and convinced the team that they were making real progress. But the victories also made them more aware of the stakes. Others would stop at nothing to gain control, and even a small mistake could give the wrong people access to unimaginable power. The desert nights became tense and reflective. The team gathered around the ship, sharing observations and discussing the larger implications of their work. Ethical questions weighed heavily on everyone. Could humanity be trusted with this kind of power? Could they use it responsibly? Or would ambition lead to destruction? No one had answers, but the discussions themselves strengthened the team's cohesion. They realized that their mission was not only to understand the ship, but also to protect it from accidents, misuse, and betrayal. Sabotage attempts began to escalate. One day, a carefully constructed interface failed without warning, causing sparks and minor damage. At first, it was assumed to be a technical glitch, but further investigation revealed that key components had been tampered with, altering their performance in subtle but dangerous ways. Panic rippled through the team. The realization that someone might be actively trying to sabotage their work created tension and paranoia. Security protocols were immediately upgraded, and work schedules were adjusted to limit exposure. Trust had to be earned, and every action was scrutinized. The presence of external pressure also forced the team to make hard choices. Some of the scientists and engineers suggested halting experiments entirely until security could be guaranteed. Others argued that progress could not wait, that the opportunity presented by the ship was too important to ignore. Heated debates occurred daily, with each side presenting compelling arguments. The team had to balance the desire for discovery with caution, knowing that mistakes or leaks could have consequences far beyond the desert. Amid the tension, human ingenuity shone brighter than ever. The team developed innovative solutions to maintain security while continuing experiments. Sensors were placed around the perimeter, redundant systems were installed, and communication channels were encrypted. The ship itself seemed to cooperate, its adaptive energy flows providing subtle cues when something was amiss. Slowly, the team regained confidence in their ability to continue their work safely, even under the watchful eyes of outsiders. Meanwhile, the ship continued to reveal secrets of its design. The energy core, once a mysterious pulse, now responded predictably to certain stimuli. Rooms that had been silent began to hum softly when the team approached with specific equipment. Small mechanical systems operated in harmony with human interventions, as if the ship recognized who was working on it. The sense of partnership with the alien technology deepened. The team no longer viewed the ship as a static object. It was dynamic, almost alive, and it seemed to respect their cautious, intelligent approach. Human emotions ran high. Excitement, fear, frustration, and wonder existed side by side. The engineers and scientists often worked long hours, fueled by adrenaline and curiosity. Some nights, exhaustion caused arguments, tempers flared, and doubts crept in. But those were the moments that revealed the team's true strength. They learned to rely on one another, to listen, and to collaborate even when tensions were high. The desert became a crucible, shaping not only their skills, but also their character. Political pressures continued to mount. Officials demanded updates on progress and wanted demonstrations of the ship's capabilities. The team had to navigate these requests carefully. Revealing too much could compromise security, but hiding progress risked losing support or funding. Each decision became a negotiation, balancing the interests of governments with the safety of the team and the integrity of their work. Diplomacy became as important as technical skill. One critical lesson emerged during this time. Knowledge alone was not enough. Controlling alien technology required patience, creativity, and emotional intelligence. The ship demanded respect, and the team realized that mistakes born of arrogance could be disastrous. They began teaching each other subtle skills: how to read energy fluctuations, how to interpret changes in the ship's internal systems, and how to anticipate reactions. Each member of the team became a specialist, not only in science or engineering, but also in understanding and respecting the unknown. Despite the challenges, progress was undeniable. The ship's systems began to respond consistently to human inputs. Energy fields could be controlled, minor tasks could be automated, and new experiments could be designed with confidence. Each success reinforced the idea that humanity could adapt, learn, and overcome even when faced with technology designed by a civilization far more advanced than their own. The abandoned ship, once a symbol of alien failure, had become a partner in discovery, challenging humans to rise to a new level of understanding. The team also discovered subtle, environmental features within the ship that could enhance their experiments. Certain rooms amplified energy outputs, while others acted as natural shields against interference. These findings were unexpected and fascinating. They suggested that the ship's designers had anticipated not only internal operation, but also interaction with external forces. Understanding these features became another layer of the challenge, requiring teamwork, observation, and careful experimentation. By the end of this phase, the team had learned more than they could have imagined. They had navigated sabotage, external pressure, and the complexity of alien systems, and had begun to form a relationship with the ship itself. They were no longer passive observers. They were active participants, shaping the outcomes of their experiments and responding to the ship's subtle guidance. It was clear that they were standing on the threshold of something extraordinary. The desert, once silent and unforgiving, now hummed with energy. Every sunrise brought new opportunities and challenges. Every night offered reflection and planning. The team understood that they were dealing not only with technology, but with responsibility. The ship's potential was immense, and humanity's ability to wield it wisely would determine what came next. Fear, wonder, and determination coexisted in equal measure, driving the team forward, ready to face the next stage of discovery, no matter how difficult or dangerous it might be. After months of careful study, experimentation, and cautious interaction, the team reached a turning point. The alien ship, once a mysterious wreck abandoned in the desert, was now responding consistently to human intervention. The small experiments that had begun with lights flickering and panels shifting now evolved into larger, more controlled tests. Energy flows could be directed with precision, minor systems could operate in tandem, and objects could be moved and manipulated with the ship's own power. The sense of achievement among the team was profound. They were no longer merely observers of alien technology. They were shaping it, understanding it, and slowly mastering it. The first step toward transformation was understanding the power core in its entirety. The young engineer who had first noticed the energy pulses spent long nights analyzing patterns and sequences, running simulations, and recording every detail. Her colleagues provided support, handling experiments, documenting failures, and testing new theories. Slowly, they learned to manipulate the core in small, incremental steps, each adjustment bringing new insights. At first, the energy seemed to respond only minimally. But as the team refined their techniques, the core became more cooperative, almost as if it recognized the effort and intelligence being applied to it. Next, the team focused on the ship's structure itself. They began dismantling and repurposing parts that were unnecessary or damaged, carefully avoiding systems that could destabilize the core or the ship as a whole. Pieces of the hull, previously inert, were integrated into human-built frameworks to test energy conduction, shielding, and control. The work was painstaking. Alien materials often behaved unpredictably, conducting energy in ways that defied logic. Each experiment was documented, repeated, and improved, with every mistake teaching something valuable. Slowly, the team began to understand the principles behind the ship's design, how energy was stored, distributed, and converted, and how the systems interacted with each other in a self-regulating cycle. During this phase, the ship itself seemed to participate in the process. Doors that had remained sealed for decades began to open when certain energy flows were applied. Holographic displays flickered to life, providing cryptic, symbolic feedback. Sensors recorded minor vibrations in response to human movement and energy manipulations. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the team noticed patterns that suggested the ship was adapting to human presence and experimentation. The realization was both thrilling and unsettling. They were dealing with something that had been abandoned, but was far from inert. It was a machine, yes, but it was also responsive, intelligent in a way that humans were only beginning to grasp. As their confidence grew, the team pushed further. They began testing the ship's energy systems at larger scales. Initially, the tests were modest, generating small energy fields, powering sections of the ship, or moving objects a few meters. Each success built confidence, but each experiment also revealed risks. One minor miscalculation could overload a system, sending sparks or energy surges through adjacent sections. Safety remained paramount. Protective measures were enhanced, redundant controls were installed, and emergency shutdown protocols were refined. The team learned to anticipate not only technical failures, but also unpredictable reactions from the ship itself. Meanwhile, the external pressures continued. Government agencies wanted results, military officials pressed for weaponized applications, and corporate observers pushed for commercialization. The team was caught in the middle, balancing ethical concerns, security, and scientific ambition. They knew that rushing the process could be disastrous. The ship's energy systems were far beyond anything humans had previously handled, and any misstep could have consequences that extended far beyond the desert. They chose to focus on careful progress, prioritizing safety and understanding over immediate display or control. The process of transformation was gradual but remarkable. Sections of the ship that had once been dormant began to operate in harmony with human inputs. Energy conduits that had appeared random now responded predictably. Mechanical systems could be manipulated to perform specific tasks, and energy fields could be shaped and directed. The ship's adaptive intelligence seemed to understand human intent, cooperating rather than resisting. It was a delicate balance, a collaboration between human ingenuity and alien design. But the results were undeniable. By the middle of this phase, the team began integrating human technology into the ship's systems. Computers, sensors, and control interfaces built on Earth were combined with alien circuitry and materials. The goal was not simply to copy the ship's functions, but to enhance them, creating a hybrid system that could be controlled and monitored safely. The integration process was challenging. Signals sometimes clashed, energy flows fluctuated, and unexpected feedback loops occurred. But each failure provided valuable insights, allowing the team to refine their approach and gradually build a system that humans could manipulate without destabilizing the ship. One breakthrough came when the team successfully stabilized a small, controlled energy field that could be manipulated externally. The field could lift objects, deflect energy pulses, and generate protective barriers. While modest compared to the ship's full potential, it was proof that human control was possible. Excitement spread through the team. They realized that they were on the verge of creating something extraordinary, not just a weapon, but a system capable of protection, exploration, and energy manipulation far beyond anything previously possible. Human ingenuity shone in other areas as well. The team discovered that the ship's adaptive systems could be taught to respond to new commands. By carefully applying sequences of energy and signals, they could train the ship to recognize specific patterns. This meant that the vessel could be guided and controlled more reliably, reducing risks associated with unpredictable behavior. It was a process that required patience, precision, and careful observation, but the results were profound. Humanity was no longer simply interacting with alien technology. They were mastering it. Throughout the transformation, the team's human qualities proved just as important as their technical skills. Collaboration, patience, creativity, and ethical judgment guided their decisions. They debated the morality of weaponizing the ship's energy, weighing potential benefits against risks. They reflected on what it meant to wield power that could reshape the world. Fear, awe, and ambition intertwined, creating a tension that kept them focused and cautious. The desert became a laboratory, not only for technology, but for humanity itself, testing their resilience, cooperation, and moral judgment. Gradually, the ship began to take a new form. Sections of the hull were reinforced with human-designed materials. Energy conduits were stabilized, and adaptive systems were integrated into a controlled network. The ship's once abandoned systems now operated in harmony with human intervention. Energy that had once been unpredictable could now be directed, channeled, and harnessed. Mechanical functions could be activated safely, and the vessel could perform complex tasks under controlled conditions. The transformation was no longer theoretical. It was real, tangible, and immensely powerful. The team also began to test the ship's capabilities on a larger scale. Energy pulses were directed to move larger objects. Protective fields were extended across sections of the desert, and mechanical systems were coordinated in tandem. Each experiment provided new insights and refined control protocols. The vessel, once a silent relic, now responded predictably and cooperatively. Humanity had taken an abandoned alien creation and reshaped it into a functional system, one that could be used to defend, explore, and, if necessary, fight. By the end of this phase, the team understood the true significance of their achievement. The ship was no longer simply a relic. It was a hybrid of alien technology and human ingenuity. Its potential was immense, its energy systems powerful, and its capabilities far beyond anything humans had previously controlled. They had taken something abandoned, failed, and alien, and transformed it into a tool that could protect humanity and alter the course of the future. Even as they celebrated, they remained cautious. The ship was powerful, and its creators were unknown. They could not predict every outcome or reaction. Every success was tempered with awareness of the risks. Yet the team felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had faced uncertainty, danger, and human ambition, and had emerged not only with knowledge, but with the ability to harness the unknown. The abandoned ship, once a symbol of alien failure, had become a testament to human determination, creativity, and resilience. By the time the final phase of their work began, the abandoned alien ship had transformed into something extraordinary. It was no longer just a relic of a civilization long gone. It had become a hybrid of alien technology and human ingenuity. The energy core, once mysterious and unpredictable, now pulsed steadily under human guidance. Mechanical systems moved with precision. Protective fields could be generated and maintained, and energy could be channeled safely for a variety of tasks. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had taken the unknown, studied it, and adapted it into a tool of immense potential. The desert, which had been a quiet backdrop to their experiments, now felt alive with energy. The ship hummed softly, a constant reminder of its power and adaptability. The team often paused in the evenings to watch the lights flicker across the hull, reflecting on how far they had come. The journey had been long, filled with failures, doubts, and unexpected challenges, yet the rewards were clear. The ship was no longer abandoned. It had become part of human history, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol of what determination and collaboration could achieve. Despite their success, the team knew that the work was not over. The ship's full capabilities were still unknown. There were systems they had yet to understand, energy flows that could still be harnessed in new ways, and potential applications that had not yet been imagined. Every day brought new questions. Could the ship be used to protect entire cities from disaster? Could its energy systems help humanity explore further into space? And most importantly, what would happen if the original creators or others returned to reclaim it? These questions lingered, a mix of excitement and caution as they began to test the ship in larger, more practical ways. The team discovered the full extent of its potential. Energy fields could be scaled up to cover significant areas. Mechanical systems could perform complex operations, and protective barriers could be extended to shield people and equipment. Small simulations showed that, in the right hands, the ship could defend entire regions, neutralize threats, and provide resources for exploration and construction. The possibilities were staggering, and yet the team remained cautious. They had learned that power without understanding could be catastrophic, and they approached every test with careful planning and oversight. The human element was as crucial as technical mastery. The team had developed a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that this technology could alter the balance of power on Earth. Ethical questions were discussed at length. Could they weaponize the ship safely? Should its power be shared or controlled by a single authority? How could they ensure it would not fall into the wrong hands? These conversations were sometimes tense, but they strengthened the team's resolve. They realized that mastering the ship was not only a technical challenge, but also a moral one. Humanity had been given a gift, or perhaps a test, and how they responded would define the next chapter of history. During one particularly long night, as the desert winds whispered across the dunes, the team gathered around the ship, reflecting on what they had accomplished. They had turned fear into understanding, uncertainty into control, and abandonment into potential. The ship, once a symbol of alien failure, had become a testament to human creativity, patience, and collaboration. They had worked through sabotage attempts, political pressure, and technical failures, and in doing so, they had proven that humanity could rise to challenges that seemed impossible. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, there was a sense of humility. The ship was powerful, but it was not theirs to dominate entirely. Its systems were alien, designed by beings who were far more advanced, and the consequences of overconfidence were clear. The team continued to study, experiment, and refine, knowing that every discovery brought new questions. The ship seemed almost aware, adapting subtly to their presence and actions, as if observing whether humanity was ready to wield its power responsibly. One of the most profound realizations came when the team understood that the ship was more than just a machine. It was a form of intelligence, adaptive and responsive. It did not act with malice, nor with the predictable logic of humans, but it responded to care, caution, and understanding. This insight changed their approach. They no longer tried to force the ship to do what they wanted. Instead, they worked with it, guiding, learning, and adjusting. The collaboration between human minds and alien design became a partnership, a silent dialogue conducted through energy flows, system responses, and controlled experiments. As news of the ship slowly reached outside authorities, the team had to make careful decisions about disclosure. They shared information selectively, emphasizing scientific achievement and potential benefits rather than military applications. There was no rush to demonstrate full capabilities, no desire to create panic or fear. They wanted humanity to learn, not to dominate blindly. This restraint reflected the lessons they had learned over months of trial and error, as well as the awareness that power without wisdom was dangerous. Gradually, the team began to envision what the future might hold. The ship could be a protector of humanity, a tool to explore new worlds, a source of energy and innovation far beyond current capabilities. But they also knew that vigilance was required. The alien creators might return, other civilizations might take interest, and human ambition could always threaten what they had built. The desert, once a place of isolation, now symbolized both opportunity and responsibility. Reminder that discovery always comes with consequences. The team's work had transformed them as well. They were no longer just scientists or engineers. They were pioneers, caretakers of knowledge and power far beyond their own civilization. Every member had grown, developing skills, judgment, and wisdom that could not have been acquired in any ordinary laboratory. They had faced fear, doubt, and immense pressure, and had emerged stronger, more united, and more capable. The ship had tested them as much as they had tested it, and in that process, humanity had been reforged alongside the technology. Finally, the day came when the team conducted a full-scale test of the ship's systems. Energy flowed smoothly, mechanical functions operated in harmony, and protective fields extended across the desert as designed. The ship responded predictably, efficiently, and cooperatively. It was a moment of triumph, a culmination of months of effort, learning, and perseverance. They had done what many had thought impossible. They had taken something abandoned and alien and transformed it into a tool of immense capability, one that could protect, explore, and inspire. As the sun set behind the dunes, the team gathered one last time outside the ship. They reflected on the journey, the challenges they had faced, and the lessons they had learned. Fear had been tempered by knowledge, chaos by careful planning, and uncertainty by determination. The ship had been a challenge, a teacher, and ultimately a partner. Humanity had not only discovered the unknown, but had risen to meet it, turning abandonment into opportunity, failure into triumph, an alien mystery into human achievement. Yet, in their reflections, a quiet tension remained. The alien creators were gone, leaving only questions. Had they failed? Had they intended for humanity to find the ship? Or had this been a test, one that would continue long after humans had mastered its systems? The team did not know, and perhaps they never would. But they understood that mastery was not about control alone, it was about responsibility, understanding, and the willingness to grow alongside what they had discovered. The desert, calm and vast under the stars, held the ship in quiet stillness. Its energy pulsed softly, a reminder of the power and potential it contained. The team walked back to their base, aware that this was only the beginning. Humanity had taken the first steps into something greater than themselves. The ship had been abandoned, yes, but it was no longer lost. It had been transformed, reforged, and integrated into the story of human achievement. And in that moment, the team knew that the journey ahead would be as extraordinary, challenging, and awe-inspiring as anything they had faced so far. The final lesson was clear. Power without understanding is dangerous. Discovery without responsibility is reckless. And technology without humanity is meaningless. The abandoned ship had been humanity's test, and they had passed not just by mastering the alien systems, but by proving that human ingenuity, patience, and moral judgment could rise to challenges far greater than anyone had imagined. And even as they walked into the desert night, the ship remained quietly pulsing, waiting for what the future would bring. It was a symbol, a tool, and a promise that humanity, when faced with the unknown, could not only survive, but adapt, learn, and thrive.